Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dodson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 222 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dodson, and welcome back to the show. In this episode, we're going to continue on our series talking about the three different personalities of reloading. And in this one, we're going to talk about the artist. So a lot of my time is spent actually talking with customers on the phone every week about reloading. This week, I'm trying to keep it count probably at least an hour and a half. And a lot of the common questions that we get here are people searching for answers. But in some ways, in calling here, as much as I don't mind talking to them and I really want to help them, is they should be referring to manuals. And part of it is the artist part. They want to hear what paint you're using. They want to hear what texture or brush you're using. They want to know all of the secrets, right? And that part I absolutely understand, and I certainly appreciate them calling. But in this episode, we're going to dive into the artist personality when it comes to reloading and some of the pitfalls you have to watch out for. We're also going to dive into, and this is a conversation we had with a customer this week, is how do you get kids addicted to long-range shooting? And how do you get them to want to come back for more? And I've got some secrets for that and some things that we've learned over the years at the shooting school. So if you've got an 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old that you want to take out and get into the art of long-range shooting and potentially have a new shooting partner as they get older, I'll share with you some tricks to keep them addicted and watch their eyes get as big as saucers when they're on the firing line, having fun with you, enjoying the American sport of rifle shooting. So it ought to be a great podcast. Without further ado, here we go. Before we get started, I do want to say a quick thank you to TriggerTech. TriggerTech is the maker of fine rifle triggers. They are probably one of the safest and easy to install triggers here that we offer. They come in different shoes. They come in different pull weights, and you can easily adjust that up or down as suited without needing a degree in trigger technology, right? So if you want to upgrade your rifle and you would like to do it with a trigger and keeping safety in mind, you can stop over to triggertech.com and look at all the fine selection that they offer for both custom rifles and factory rifles. We'd also like to thank MDT, maker of fine rifle chassis, lots of different makes and models, including the newly released J. Allen, which is $1,500. Great chassis, one of my favorites. I haven't got one of the new ones in to see what they did differently, but I think they're just ramping up production and making it a lot less expensive. Probably one of the most comfortable chassis as far as I'm concerned to shoot. Ergonomically, it fits really well. And they make everything from that right down to the Oryx, which is still probably the best unsung hero in the chassis market at $429. So if you want to upgrade your rifle and get a stock that fits you properly and has full adjustability, you can stop over to mdttac.com. That's mdttac.com today. So the artist when it comes to long range shooting. This personality is sort of pretty unique in the fact that they not only want to potentially save some money and they want to make their own ammunition, but they're attracted to the art and craft of it. And on the surface, it seems like a very normal thing to want to do, and it is. Myself, I am addicted to a personality that I like to learn new things all the time. And I will tell you at 53 years old now, or 54, that it is both a curse and a blessing. So it keeps your mind sharp. It also keeps you down lots of different rabbit holes, learning new things all the time. And it's just one thing leads to another, leads to another question, leads to another question, leads to another question. And you're trying to really learn the art, right? It's not just on the surface of, well, we mix these two colors together and we get this color, right? We want to know the pigmentation. We want to know the numbers. We want to know the percentages of each color that we want to mix. I mean, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, right? With this type of personality, when you get into reloading, what you have to be really careful of is that you can get into a situation where you're going down rabbit holes and you're trying new things. So the first danger to people that get into this personality when it comes to reloading is you can get yourself in harm's way because you're following all these things that make sense online, the quote-unquote experts. I have books here that people have sent me over the years on different subject matters to where somebody thought it was so important on, let's just say, the seating depth, for example, which it is. And on the surface, we have to actually seat the bullet properly, right? Straight and true and all this stuff. But I mean, pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of information talking about all of these different things behind the curtains. Well, it's good information to know, but to new shooters, then all of a sudden it can lead to experimenting to try to get the perfect seating depth and making sure that the bullets are perfectly straight and true and not out of round as far as then the next thing you know, you're measuring each bullet and weighing each bullet and measuring from base to tip. And oh gosh, you'll be trimming the hollow point, and that way you have the same, I think they call it met plates, but you'll trim the hollow point so that each hollow point is exactly the same. You'll be tipping the bullets. I mean, I can just give you a laundry list of things that you can go down, and a lot of times you not only can make really lousy ammunition because you're monkeying with stuff all the time and you're modifying stuff differently, but the other problem is you can lead yourself into a situation where it gets dangerous and you end up doing things that seem to make sense on paper because let me tell you, you don't watch a YouTube video without them trying to sell you something. These influencers, they're almost like used car salesmen. They just look nicer, dress nicer, and in the women's case, a lot of times dress a lot more scantily to get you to watch the video. It's just absolutely insane, right? So they're there to sell you something, and they have the greatest pitches. I mean, the art of salesmanship and the art of sales pitches is not dead. Like the number one paid person in any company is the lead salespeople or department or marketing or the people that actually get people to buy the product. They are really good at this. And so they're going to sell you on this technique. They're going to sell you on this oil. They're going to sell you on, the list just goes on and on and on. And the problem is you've got all of these different things going on at the same time. You're trying to make ammunition and you're modifying 2 or 3 different things at one shot. And then you go to the range and you shoot it and you don't get what you expect, or there's a problem here, there's a problem there. And rather than going back and taking one part of that problem and dealing with it, right? So let's just say, for example, your standard deviation is all over the place. Fair enough. Well, rather than going back and trying to change one thing at a time and going back to the range and testing to try to isolate the problem and figure it out, you go back and do 3 or 4 more things that you've read online, and either the problem doesn't go away or it gets worse, right? And so not only do you not get to solve the original problem and actually have an answer as to what caused it, you keep turning that wheel with the rodent on it and just spinning things up like crazy, and you're going to get yourself into crazy town, crazy town, crazy town. People are funny. Personalities are really funny when it comes to shooting because I'm not sure if I want to call it the alpha male or the person that just wants to win but man, guys get bent. I mean, they're throwing magazines across the firing line. They're ready to throw their rifle out the window on the way home. I mean, they're passionate and sometimes to a fault, way too passionate over this stuff. And they're getting themselves into this trouble. If they were just to follow the basics and go by the book, piece by piece, line by line, yeah, maybe they ran into a problem that they have to change one thing at a time till they isolate and find out what it was and then fix it. But instead they change 2 or 3 things. They're following 5 different people's advice, and most of which, by the way, aren't experts. The people that are out there, the most popular YouTube channels on the planet when it comes to reloading, they come off great on TV. They come off intelligent, right? But they're also, keep in mind, marketing and influencing, and they are paid to do that. They are seeking a big paycheck and getting into the shooting community and becoming an influencer, right? So just be careful with that, right? Be careful. The last thing I want to touch base on this one, I'm just cautioning you because I have this personality. It's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I love to learn new things. But I've got to caution you on looking for innovation and then overreach. Now, on the surface, it might seem like something silly to say overreach, but in your search to try to make technically correct or perfect ammunition and reading all of the experts' advice and cruising all of the forums, by the way, you just get what you get. You don't know who's posting this stuff. But then all of a sudden you start reaching your hand too far into the rabbit hole. And you don't know this, but at the bottom of that long hole you're sticking your arm down in is a trap. And it can get you, right? So you start going down, you feel more comfortable each time you stick your arm in a little bit farther, a little bit farther, a little bit farther. And then all of a sudden, whack, there you got it. So you start experimenting, you start learning this new stuff, and all of a sudden, it's like gambling. The worst thing that can happen to someone that has an addictive personality is to go to Vegas and win the first time they roll the dice. Win big, win $1 million. They're going to be broke the rest of their lives. So the worst thing you can do for our personalities is to come up with something that just shocks you. Like you go to the range and you're shooting 1/4-inch groups. That's the worst thing that could possibly happen to you, because you're going to now feel that that's the secret. I've got it. It's research and development. It's finding out the latest and greatest. And, you got lucky. You got that first group out of the gate. There's something magical about it, but you got a huge win. And now you're going back for more. You're going into that, rolling the dice and gambling all the time, putting both your finances and your life at risk and doing so. But it's like a gambler, right? The worst thing you can do to somebody new to gambling is to have them make a couple big wins right out of the gate, because they're addicted. And for our personalities, having some big wins and reloading, doing some of this crazy stuff, all of a sudden gets you to overreach for the next thing and overreach for the next thing and overreach for the next thing, which can lead to not just dangerous things, but can keep you from just settling in and enjoying the art of shooting. So I always gauge a win at the range is going home with less questions that I arrived in. So if I'm going to the range and I'm working on something in particular, a project, for example, when I go to the range, I might have 3 questions or 2 or even 1 that I'm trying to answer, right? I've got something I'm working on. I'm trying to get some research on this. If I go home with, I went with 3 questions, been working on 3 different projects. I'm working on them. I got 3 things I'm trying to answer. And if I come home with answering 2 of those and still working on 1, that is a win. A big lose is to go to the range with 3 questions and come home with 5 more, right? And it just eats at you. It causes you to really not enjoy yourself so much, and you chase the golden goose. I mean, that's just all there is to it. So enjoy the art of it. I love details. I love technical stuff. But just to give you 2 other examples, right? And just then I'll move on to getting young shooters going. Modern aviation. Most pilots crash and die when they fly into meteorological conditions because they have to look at instruments now. We can multitask, but we can't multi-focus. If you talk to any old school pilot out there, especially, single engine airplanes, it will tell you, keep your eyes out of the cockpit. Glance down, look at your airspeed, check your RPMs, look at temperature, whatever you want to look at real quick, and then get your eyes back out of the cockpit. Fly with stick and rudder, with the seat of your pants, with your feet on the pedals and your hands on the wheel and your butt in the seat and your eyes out of the cockpit. That's how you fly an airplane. You're looking out the horizon, you're watching your wingtips, you're watching for anything incoming, you're watching for other airplanes, all of these things you're paying attention to. When a lot of pilots get in trouble is when all of a sudden they fly into conditions that they can't see. Now all of a sudden they got to fly by all instruments. And it is funny. I mean, it's not funny, but it's funny. Like, they get disoriented. They can't keep track of all the 3 or 4 things that they're trying to do. Or even worse yet, they're flying by modern navigation. So they're watching this little dot on the screen move across the map rather than looking outside the airplane, right? So they have to look up. They have to keep aware of their surroundings. And if that little blip on that screen goes down, they have to look outside the cockpit. They probably don't know where they're at. I mean, they got an idea, but they've not flown around their home airport enough to recognize all the different markers, recognize all the different roads to get back to the airport, which direction's north, east, southwest. Sailing is another one. A lot of people, for example, I'll give you a great example here. I was bringing a sailboat back up from St. Petersburg, bringing it up to Washington, North Carolina. This is me and my wife's sailboat. So we have a 32-foot pilot house that we purchased. It's a pretty cool story on the boat, but nonetheless, we hired a professional captain, and this professional captain turned out to be a total waste of time. My experience with professional boat captains, and I don't mean to offend anybody out there, but we've dealt with 3 or 4 of them, and I will tell you that they use the word professional pretty loosely. Anyway, we just got out of the Lost Lock, so we went down the western side of Florida. We were heading into the Okeechobee, so we were going through the locks and getting ready to get into the Okeechobee, and which we were going to turn down, and we had a nice place that we were going to anchor for the night and then cross Okeechobee in the morning. Well, when we got out of the last lock, my quote unquote professional captain, who has his 100-ton license, I listened to this guy beat his chest, and he wasn't our first captain. He was replaced by our original captain because he couldn't make it. And this is my right-hand man, and this is the guy I always send. And it was like 5 days before departure, right? So I trusted that this person was going to be more than qualified. And I talked to him on the phone many times. He was an older gentleman. But anyway, we get out of the last lock, the rain start coming in. And I turn over the helm to him and I'm like, okay, here, it's a straight shot right now, like 10 miles. That's all we have to go till we get to where we're going to pull in for the night. And it's a canal, right? It's a straight shot right down south. So I'm like, hey, it's starting to rain. I'll get you on the inside pilot house, get you out of the weather. You take over. I'll tidy up out here. I'll be right in. So he goes in and takes command of the boat at the inside pilot house. We're 400 yards. It's straight as an arrow. It's 50 yards wide, 100 yards wide, right? I tidy everything up. I close some hatches behind me. I step in. I turn around to close the door behind me. He ran aground, knocked me 10, 15 feet backwards in the cabin, almost down a set of steps. I'm so lucky I didn't break my neck, my head, my arm, and he went aground hard. Now, these are tough boats. Like, these are blue water boats. You don't want to use them as battering rams. It's not something I would elect to go around and jam my boat into the ground, especially outside the Okeechobee where most of it's, rock with the outside walls. Anyway, I grabbed the wheel from him. He's looking at the chart. He's looking at the chart in front of his face rather than looking up, eyes out of the cockpit, looking down the canal. So I got us unstuck. I went to the outside cockpit, took me in control of the boat, got us off, and started back down the canal again. Now, I have to check for damage. I have to check to make sure we don't have any water coming in somewhere, right? Now, again, these boats are tough as nails, but we grounded pretty hard. So I'm like, okay, listen, you've got the boat, all right? You've got the boat. You're in command. Straight down the canal. I'm going to pull some hatches and just make sure that we don't have water coming in from somewhere to, we didn't do something damage to the boat, right? I look down. I look up, and he's swerving off the canal again, driving almost straight into the rocks. So I grab the wheel, and I look at his eyes. He's looking at the chart again. He's looking at this map that he's overblown in, right? So think of like zooming in on whatever navigation piece of equipment you have, and he's trying to steer straight using the screen rather than just taking his eyes and looking at the cockpit and driving straight down the canal. So I grab the wheel, I yank it over, I'm yelling at him. He looks at the chart again. I yell at him again. I'm like, do not look at that chart one more time, that electronic chart. You put your eyes outside the beep, beep, beep cockpit and you watch down this canal and you drive down the middle of it. You got it. And he was like, well, I'm trying to, I'm like, listen, and I almost wanted to throw him overboard. For the record, the Okeechobee, there probably wouldn't have been anything left of him if I would have tossed him out. But I had to correct him like 3 times to stop looking at that damn chart, like that screen that was running. He wanted to constantly look down at that and straighten up to the screen. And if you looked outside our cockpit windows, 100 yards wide, straight as an arrow right down the middle, and you could see fine. Like, that's the danger you get into when you reload as well. You put your eyes on the chart and you inadvertently, you're looking at all these things going on. And instead of making great ammunition, or in our case, going the last 10 miles to get to a nice place to get something to eat and get some rest, he crashes the boat. Happens all the time. So when you're making ammunition, pick your head up. Go back to basics. Be careful that you don't get so sucked into all this magic world of electronics and all this magic world of all these secrets people are going to share with you that your eyes get so focused in on that screen that you forget that, hey, you've got this big world of responsibility to keep yourself safe, to make your ammunition correctly, to make your ammunition safely, to pay attention to the procedures so you don't wind up with a squib load or empty pouch. Just be careful. So one of the more interesting questions that I got this week is, how do I get my youngster to get completely hooked into long-range shooting? Well, I wish I knew the secrets to all of it, but I am going to share with you a couple of things. This is a very common question, and the next generation matters. So getting the next generation out and enjoying the art of long-range shooting is super important. This is probably something that we talk about at least once a month here with somebody trying to get their youngster. I've built a fair amount of custom rifles, believe it or not, for 8 and 9 and 12-year-olds. It's amazing that Santa can pit them down the chimney. I'm sure that America is alive and well when Christmas still has a rifle under the tree. That's pretty cool. And just super excited. Like the one I had to modify the length of pull to like 10.5 inches. I mean, and then I got some pictures of 350-yard mule deer in heavy winds, and she nailed it. It was amazing, right? Just this tiny little girl hammering. I mean, just great. So anyway, how do you get them hooked into shooting? I'll tell you the secrets. We have them come through the shooting school here all the time. If you want to get and have an opportunity to have a long-term, long-range shooting partner, or someone that's going to want to go to the range with you, not like, you going to the range with me today? Yeah, I guess. And you want the kid like, hey, when are we going to the range again? Hey, when are we going to the range again? Hey, when are we going to the range again? You're like, you just asked me that like 5 minutes ago. Hey, when are we going to the range? That's the excitement level you want, right? That's the person you want to get out to the range. Well, there's 3 things that you can do to ensure that you're going to have a shooting partner for a long time to come. The first one, right out of the gate, if you have any ability to shoot suppressed, kids do not like booms. Nobody does. Why do you think dogs cower in the corner at the first crack of lightning, right? Loud noises scare people. Loud noises signify danger. It's a very in our core DNA, hey, something bad just happened, right? So the first thing I can tell you with kids is number one, and young and females, I mean, even just females in general, girls getting into this for the first time, right, is get a suppressor on your rifle. If you live in a state where you can get one, now there's no excuse not to go get one. The lead times are very short. You can get a suppressor in a very short period of time. Get a suppressor. It is amazing. If we take kids to the range, and I've done experiments with this 15, 20 years ago, I would take 2 or 3 kids out, 12, 13, 14 years old. They had to be shooting 223s. They'd be hitting steel, having a hoot. All I had to do is take the suppressors off the rifles and say, hey, guys, we got to let the suppressors cool a minute. Let's go ahead and pull them off. And those 223s cracked. Were bolt guns, now mind you. That's all it took, and more than half the kids will stop hitting the targets. So reducing that crack, it's alarming, it's nerve-wracking, and even to some full-grown adult males, they don't like big boom. So get a suppressor. The second thing is get a caliber that they can spot their own shots with. This is the biggest thing that I can tell you. You will take their enjoyment from a 30% smile to a 120% smile if they can see the bullet strike. There is nothing more satisfying than pulling the trigger, waiting a second, and then watching that steel get hit by your own shot. It will hook them hook, line, and sinker. They pull the trigger, the gun's looking somewhere else, and they're never sure if they hit it. They hear the steel ring, they think, and oh yeah, that was a good hit. They're sort of excited, but they're not. They don't get to see the results of their hard work. But as soon as you can get their focus on the target, and let's just say 700 yards, they ring that steel, it's on. I mean, they are going to be hooked for life. So you have to get a caliber, and my 2 recommendations are like 223s for sure. 75 grain bullets will shoot out 600-700 yards, no problem. 1, 2, and 300 yard steel is easy for them to self-spot. And then the third part, I'm going to get into a bonus part here, but the third part is to make sure that the rifle fits them properly. Get something with an adjustable length of pull that they can actually get into the rifle like a miniature adult, right? And then build the weight of the gun up. Don't make them carry it around and everything else, right? We're not trying to torture them. We're trying to, we don't want to make our children our Sherpas. We want to encourage them to come back, not all hot and sweaty, like, yeah, I'm not doing this again. But build the weight of the rifle up. Get a heavy rifle so there's no hop and no bounce. You want the rifle to not startle them because they have a tendency, here's the side note, they get their face really close to the optics. The more they keep shooting, the closer they keep trying to sneak in there. And if that scope come back and bumps them with any type of real hit, they're going to question themselves or whether they want to do this anymore or not, right? So having like a 223 or 22 Creedmoor or 22 ARC and bolt gun, 22 long rifle and anything is fine, but in AR platforms, they got that side port and it dumps gas out there and it makes noise. And not only that, but all that noise is happening under their face so that everything's cycling, right? And then they hit the side bolt, stop, release, and pinch their fingers. I mean, I can just tell you like so many stories of ARs and why I don't think that's a good choice to take your youngster out shooting until they really get used to it. We're talking about wanting to get them to be hooked into long range shooting, right? Is bolt guns. A, they're safer. When the bolt's back, the gun can't fire, right? And they get to work the bolt, and they learn the art of safety, right? So build the gun weights up. Make sure it's a heavy rifle. That way it doesn't bounce around. Good solid bipod, good solid bunny ear bag in the back, so it's easier for them to sort of get on target and pinch the ears and shoot. And then suppressor and adjustable length of pull short enough. I mean, there's several out there. You got to argue with some of them sometimes to get them to make the length of pull short enough. Some of the manufacturers don't like to cut them that short because then they got to add these extra spacers, and they'll complain about it. But as soon as you tell them it's for a kid, sometimes they'll forget about all of that. So, oh, yeah, we can do that. So make sure you get an adjustable length of pull and then a grip that fits their hands right. I mean, kids are small. They got small hands. So having a big old tactical grip on there, they can't even grip the thing. They got to stick their finger around and just sort of pull the trigger. Try to make sure you get a grip or a rifle that has a grip that they can actually grip the rifle a little bit and pull the trigger. Now, before I get on to my last little secret for this is I want to say thank you to Krieger Barrels. Krieger's the maker of fine cut rifle barrels made here in the great old USA. And they have a new program called Krieger Direct where you can get your barrel in as little as 2 to 3 business days. They post barrels up all the time. Now, it's not a huge inventory. They make extra barrels all the time. They put them up there for sale. And so you just have to keep an eye on it. I usually check it in the morning and the evenings. If it was me, if I'm trying to keep an eye to grab something that would fit my needs. So if you want the best and you want it now, you can stop over to KriegerBarrels.com and get your barrel in as little as 2 to 3 business days. All right, my last secret for kids. This is it. This is a big one. Take them out with 22 long rifles, 223, something like that, and put a bunch of fun targets up. So Gabby, when she was younger, it's my daughter, we had this bag of golf balls. Like I think we bought them at like Dick's Sporting Goods or something. It was like 5 inches round and maybe 12 inches tall. All these different colors, pink, blue. They almost look like miniature golf balls. And we would buy these golf tees, and we would go around and hang golf balls from strings off the targets. We would put them on the ground, and it would just be like a big kid shooting gallery. It's super fun, right? And then we would hang other things, sporting clays. So regular sporting clays, and then they make mini sporting clays. Kids love reactive targets. You know, they want to see it break and pop and go flying in pieces. And so we would set those around. And then every once in a while we'd take eggs out. I mean, I know it sounds silly and probably expensive nowadays, but we used to take eggs out, put them on the targets, tape them on the targets, or just hang them, you know? And I mean, you would be surprised on how like super aggressively they're like staring at that egg because they want to bust that sucker. I mean, it's like they got a vendetta on it. And, you know, they break that egg and they're like, oh my God, you see that? You know, the whole ride home, we're talking about an egg. That's how you get kids addicted. So a couple tips for getting the next generation out. And then a lot of time with 22 long rifles at, 50 and 100 yards, you have to dial up. You know, if you zero at 50, then you have to dial a little bit when you're going out to 100. And if you want to give them a challenge, dial it out even further. We're going to get into scopes for kids next. So we're going to continue on our series here where we're talking about the different personalities in reloading. And then I want to dive into some scopes that we can use for kids that make it a little bit easier as well. But put those inanimate objects out there, put some fun. No tannerite. Big booms is not good for kids. And plus, I think in my mind, I'm not sure if I really want that going on at our local ranges here. And, I don't want them to be thinking of other things that they could shoot that would blow up. I mean, they don't have the brains developed yet to think that, hey, on the other end of this could really be something bad, So I'm not a big fan of taking them out, especially the kids, and letting them shoot anything like tannerite and blowing refrigerators and microwaves and stuff like that up. I think for that, I would leave that for people to do on their own. As adults, they get to make their own decisions, but for kids, I probably wouldn't do that. All right, so for next week, we're going to get into our last personality, and this is the competitor. This one's going to be a lot longer when we get into next week's podcast. There's a lot that can go on here, and I deal with this week. I'm running the clock while I'm talking, reloading on the phone, at least an hour. This week, I'm talking with customers on this subject to get into the situations and make some dangerous ammunition. Also, I'd like to throw out there, we only have 2 or 3 slots left for our long-range shooting school for 2025. So if you'd like to join us, we'd love to have you. I believe we have a couple slots left between July and October. And don't forget about our online long-range shooting school. It is a great place to go prepping to come to the school here because you're going to learn more here because you got a chance to get your whistle wet and you're going to get a really good dose of everything that you're going to cover while you're here with the rifle in your hands. If you can't make it to our long long range shooting school and you'd like to join us, you can check out the Wolf Pack. It's wolfprecision.net and join the online long range shooting school there. We appreciate that. And then we always recommend, if you're taking the online course, is make sure that you take it from our website. So our website has all the videos in order, and I believe there's over 18 hours of content on there now, but you can click on video 1, video 2, video 3 in order. It's going to kick you over to Patreon to sign up and register. We have to verify you're over 18, but then come back to our actual website to enjoy the course. A couple quick updates too. We'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to join the podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast and like to share it, we really appreciate it. We'd also like to ask if you enjoyed it and you'd like to leave a nice comment down below. That means a lot to us here. But I want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us. We did miss the Great American Outdoor Show. Sadly, we're all packed up on Thursday and Friday, getting ready to leave for the show. And everybody here just got completely decimated with the flu. We closed up. We went home early Thursday and really sick as a dog Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and just barely getting back on our feet and functional now. Remind me not to get that again for quite a while. But yeah, we had everybody here get pretty much wiped out with it. So we didn't make it. This is the first show we've ever had to cancel. Unfortunately, it is what it is. Can't go there that sick. No way. But anyway, thank you everybody for taking the time to join us. I really appreciate it. We want to thank you for myself and everybody here that's a team at Wolf Precision. So thank you for taking the time to join us. My name is Jamie Dodson. I'm your host, and you're listening to Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting Custom Rifle Building Podcast.